right? Now, a very typical example of that is where it's really going to extremes is when you are about to get on a bike to go from one place to another. I mean, you might have seen thousands of those applications, right? Like Hello Bike and what is it called? I always forget how they call Turn and others, where you are in front of a bike. You want to get on a bike to get from where you are to where you want to be. You don't have an account yet. You don't have anything, but you are in front of the bike. You are interested in just taking it on the ride. Your goal is very, very simple. You want to get to that point quickly, right? Now, what is the common onboarding experience or navigation experience really for getting from I'm here in front of the bike to I'm here leaving the bike because I'm done? Like, what is the experience most of the time? Now, this is what the experience is often most of the time. You get a splash screen first, right? Because you have to download the app. You get into the bike, there is a QR code or the URL that you need to go to, and then you download the app. And that's something that you probably should be expecting, right? So you do that, you download the app, and you get a welcome splash screen with a sign up button and login button. Okay, well, then that means you need to sign up. So you go and sign up, and that means a couple of input fields. Then you get to terms and conditions, which is 17 screens, which of course you will read and mark as I agree. Then you need to give the app access to your location because it needs, okay, it needs access to your location to know where you are and where you're going, to navigate you, or maybe to just, track where the bike is at the moment, right? Then after that, you get a tutorial. And it's not just one tutorial, it's 2 or 3 or 4 or 7 screens explaining how it actually works. And then you get to the map, right? And eventually, of course, you will probably need to plug in your credit card data and give access to other things as well. Sounds familiar? More or less? Right? Maybe, right? And this is all over, right? And this is such a painful experience. Now, if you think about this, you have to go through sometimes 20, 25 screens to actually start riding, to start pedaling. That's not a great UX at all. This is another one, exactly the same story. You have a start screen, you have safety tips, then you have your motion permissions, then you have your location permissions. Then after that, you will get a map. Then you actually tap where you are. You get a sign up prompt where we can register and log in, right? And then you end up in selecting a network of bicycles where you're driving or a city where you're driving. And then you have to select a plan. Then you have to select and write your name and your email address. And after that, you have to type in your phone number. Then you get a verification code on your phone, which you have to type in. Then you have to create a password. Then you have to go to terms and conditions and scroll 17 times. Then you have to add to the cart that thing, like that trip, that one single trip or single ride or 24 hours trip. It could be like $1 or whatever. And then you check out, and only then you can actually go and start riding. That's not a really great experience because we need to make sure that our customers always feel like they're making progress. And most of the steps that we saw right now, they're not helping there at all. They're not telling people that they're making progress when you're looking at the 17 terms and conditions screens that you have to go through. So how can we make it better? Well, there are a couple of really nice examples of how we can make it better. Like, for example, when we look into something like, hold on, let me just jump to it, like Lime. Lime is a little bit different. It never asks you for your name because it's not so important. I mean, it will be important eventually, right? When you will need to want your receipt, maybe, right? But it might not be necessary at the first place at all. Email, is it important to have email? Maybe it's more important to have a phone number. So that's what they're starting with. Start writing now, and you get the phone number that's being asked from, or you can continue with Facebook, and then they would get your email, right? And then there is a next button, and it says, we'll send a text to verify your phone, which is okay, right? So you type in your number, you get the notification, it automatically picks it up from that, SMS that you're receiving. And then it explains to you, before just showing that prompt, it prepares you for it. So it tells you, oh, please enable location services. It will use it to show nearby scooters and bikes on the map, right? And you click on enable location services preemptively, and then that thing shows up where you can actually allow to use the location. So it's always explained why you actually need it, right? And then you have the same for notifications prompt, right? And then you have a map. And then you have the camera access prompt, again, explaining why they need it, right? There is no tutorial explaining how this works because people know how to pedal. Instead, maybe just enable camera access because Lime will use a camera to scan QR code to start your ride. And look at how helpful that is. Have a flashlight in here. So it turns on flashlight if it's dark, right? That's very nice. And if you don't want to, you can just paste in. If you don't want to scan a QR code, you can just type in the number. And then it gives you access. Would you like to access a camera? Right? Because again, Lime will use the camera to scan QR. We actually saw it in the previous slide, right? But actually, when you click on this button, you don't see this as two screens. It's kind of a part of the same step towards the end, right? And then you have to verify payment info, and it happens on Apple Pay or Android Pay, and that's it. You can start writing. You confirm, and you go. That's it, right? It's still quite a lot because you need to get like terms and conditions, you need to get the permissions and so on. But I would argue that because at this point, this is very me-centric, not like product-centric, it's about the customer, okay, phone number, location services, permissions, go. That's way better, right? And this is the same problem that all of them are solving. So maybe onboarding doesn't have to include tutorials. And maybe we need to really look into what is the minimal piece of information that we need in order to somebody to actually start rolling or start pedaling, right? And that's always the magical part about UX. Does it all make sense, everyone?
Yes, yes.
Yes, excellent. Now I also have the checklist for it, right? And you will also find it in the Google Doc with interface design checklists. But in general, when it comes to onboarding, we want to identify key data input and the minimal amount of information that we need, right? And focus on it first and drive towards small wins, not features. Frankly, maybe it's just me. And I know that many companies have a very different mindset. But frankly, I think that at this point, as of today, most people don't even care that much about features. So if we try to attract somebody saying, hey, we have more new features, we have more new cool things, I'm not sure if this is always going to be the winner because people want convenience and speed. And more importantly, as we've seen over the last couple of years, privacy, focus on privacy. So if we can provide that, maybe we don't need to invest that much money into making things, adding more and more features. And this, which would of course end up in a feature creep eventually, right? And so we can talk a lot about this, but there is this really famous, quite well-known notion of when we think about design, design is usually much more impactful than some features can be, right? This is why companies like Nordstrom, for example, invested so much into delight. And I'm not, I know delight is a very fancy word, but the point was really they were trying to do a lot of things. Like Disney is to all the same story. They were trying to do many things to get more customers and bring more features and more characters and speed up the delivery and all the things. And one thing that was incredibly successful and way more successful than any feature that they brought up in the last decade or so was to give a voucher of $100 to every employee and tell their employees that they can spend this money, like $100 per week, I think, not a day, per week. They can spend the money in any way they like in order to make the customer happy. Right? That was the only goal. Right? They would not invest in anything else. They just give the money, but this money has to be spent on customers. It cannot be spent on something else. So you ended up with a lot of stories. Like there was an older woman coming in, and she had a lot of bags around her, and she was buying something at Nordstrom, which is just a big retailer in the U.S. And so she was buying all the things, and she was carrying this bag and so on. And so the employee, the cashier at the register, said, "Oh, maybe we can just order a cab for you." And she was like, "Yes, please. That would be very convenient." And they spent this money, like $30 or so, on that cab receipt to drive this older lady to home. That's it. So she told her daughter, and her daughter told her friends, and all of a sudden it has become a huge story on Twitter, right? And this brought Nordstrom so much positive marketing, right? You would never be able to reach that with Instagram ads or Facebook ads or Google ads, right? And that's just by giving like a little discount, a voucher to people who are working there. That's it, to spend on customers. That was quite significant. And that has nothing to do with features. So I think that if we can bring our interfaces in the same spot, more or less, even if you're stalling and you don't deliver every feature like every year, right? This will give you incredible results. Another story why I'm on it, and then I'm really wrap up here, is the Disney story, which is also very exciting because if you think about Disney, this is such an interesting story. Disney was a little bit corporate in the 90s. I don't know if you remember, but it was of course you have the cartoons and you have the, these little toys and all the things, but they didn't have a really great reputation. Also because they didn't treat the customer, the employees really well. They didn't pay well and other stories. So there was a new CEO that was coming in late 90s. I think it came in like 1999. And this CEO was focused heavily on design and UX. And that was interesting because he was a business guy. He was not a design guy in any way. It's now that we have Airbnb with, design folks and so on. But back then, he was just coming in thinking that we need to really think about the experience. And this is where this notion of UX on a broader scope, right? Not just interactive systems on the machine, but like UX, like a service design kind of thing, really came into place. And the story went like this. They essentially thought, let's see about where we can touch people's hearts. That was kind of one of the things that they had on the agenda. How can we touch people's hearts? And they did research. And this is why I'm saying that research is so important. They did research, they talked to people, they talked to children, because of course they don't have just cartoons. They also have the parks, right? Entertainment parks, which people can go to, right? And so they invented over the course of 4 years the thing that they call the magic band. And the magic band essentially is a band that you receive when you check in, right? And it has all on it. It's just it has a couple of what's called the NFC chip on it, or NFC technology in place. And whenever you want to buy something, you pay with a band. Whenever you walk around, you can activate certain parts of the journey with a band, right? So it kind of gives this superhero feeling to children coming into those parks. And so one thing that has become a thing as well is that there was this little child who went 6 or 7 years old, went with his parents on a journey in Disneyland, and parents were really kind of preparing for it, of course, but they didn't have like a whole plan about what is going to happen, right? They just didn't have that. And so they ended up in there and they were walking around the routes and they're enjoying the experience. And it's also so interesting because that was the first time, the first year, when they redesigned this entire park. Normally, if you think about the park experience, and it's part of navigation as well, it's like go here first. This is point one. Go to two, then go to three, then go to four, then go to five, then go to six. It's very structured, right? Most parks around the world are very structured. Well, not Disney Park, because it has all these little hidden parts. There is no map like go here first, go there first. Start where you want to. And they have all these different paths you can take. And it's probably not going to happen that you're going to explore all of them at once. It's just not going to happen. You will always find something new because they have different music, different things happening in different places, and so on. So what happened there was this. This child was kind of walking around, and because he had a magic band, and again, this is a little bit of a privacy concern, but because they had a magic band, um, all the creatures like a Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and others, they all knew that this person had a birthday because he had a birthday that day. So everywhere he went, he was kind of all in a special treatment in a way, right? So he was always getting attention, and he was getting a lot of like surprise gifts and this and that, and they would even sing happy birthday to him, right? And they would play happy birthday song when he would enter and things like that. He felt like he's in a magic land. And this became such a big story as well because his parents were all over the moon. This child desperately tried to get to the attraction park like at least once a year, right? And has become a big story covered by major news companies and so on, just because it touched people's heart on such a profound level. You could never reach that by having, let's say, a map go from here to here to here to here. And this is where actually this entire notion of Airbnbs and others came in, where design all of a sudden matters. This matters because it's much cheaper than building features. Like good design is expensive, but it's not as expensive as hiring 200 engineers who would work non-time, like full time, right, trying to improve a performance by zero point 0.5 seconds, right? It's just much cheaper to invest into design, and it has a much more profound impact and benefit as well, which is why I think that we're lucky and we're happy to be in this place because we can have a tremendous impact. And I think that many times we just don't know it yet. Whew, that's me kind of speaking from my heart. I hope that it actually made sense.